Please, kill me. Just don't send me back. Clara's voice cracked as her knees hit the muddy riverbank. Blood dripped from her split lip onto the stones below. Behind her, 3 men on horseback laughed. Then came the click of a rifle, and a stranger stepped out of the shadows. Pecos River, New Mexico Territory. Summer 1875. This is a story of broken souls, silent promises, and love that blooms where no one expected. If you want to see how it ends, subscribe now and comment the city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The summer heat pressed down on the Pecos River Valley like a hand trying to smother the earth. Dust hung thick in the air, and the water moved slow brown and lazy under the afternoon sun. Clara ran. Her bare feet slapped against the rocky ground each step, sending pain shooting up through her legs. The hem of her torn dress caught on brush and thorns, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Behind her hooves pounded the dirt. "You're just making this harder on yourself, girl." The voice belonged to Silas Virgil Kane's right hand. She knew that voice, knew what came after it. Clara's lungs burned. Her ribs screamed where they'd been cracked 2 nights before. But she pushed forward toward the river, toward anything that wasn't back there. She broke through the tree line and stumbled down the bank. Her ankle twisted on a wet stone, and she went down hard palms, scraping against rock and mud. There she is! 3 riders emerged from the brush. Silas in front, flanked by 2 others she didn't recognize. New hires. Kane always had new hires. Clara tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She crawled backward until her spine hit a boulder. "Mr. Kane's been real worried about you," Silas said, dismounting with a slow, deliberate motion. 2 weeks you've been gone. That ain't polite." "I ain't going back." Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. She hated that. Hated how even now her body betrayed her. Silas smiled. It never reached his eyes. "That ain't your choice, sweetheart." He grabbed her arm and yanked her to her feet. Clara cried out, the pain in her ribs flaring white-hot. "Please." "Please what?" Silas leaned in close enough that she could smell the tobacco on his breath. "Please don't hurt me. Please let me go." He laughed. "You know what Mr. Kane does to runners. You knew when you left." Clara's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "I'd rather die." "That can be arranged. After we bring you back." He raised his hand. Clara flinched, bracing for the blow. It never came. Instead there was a sound. Sharp. Metallic. Click. Everyone froze. Clara opened her eyes. Silas had gone still, his hand suspended in midair. His gaze had shifted to somewhere behind her upstream. "Mr." Silas called out, his voice carrying a new edge. "This ain't your concern. Ride on." Silence. Clara turned her head, following Silas's stare. A man stood on the opposite bank, half hidden in the shadow of a cottonwood tree. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark hat pulled low over his face. In his hands a rifle aimed steady and true. He didn't speak. "You hear me?" Silas tried again, louder now. "This girl belongs to Virgil Kane. She's stolen property. We're just bringing her home." Still nothing. The stranger didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't lower the rifle. One of the other men shifted nervously on his horse. "Silas, maybe we should—" "Shut up." Silas released Clara's arm and took a step toward the river. "Listen here, friend. I don't know who you are, but there's 3 of us and 1 of you. So unless you want to die for some runaway whore, I suggest you—" The rifle cracked. The bullet hit the water 2 inches from Silas's boots, sending up a spray that soaked his legs. He stumbled backward, cursing. "Son of a—" Another shot. This one closer. Silas held up his hands, backing toward his horse. All right. His face had gone pale. "We're leaving, but this ain't over." He pointed at Clara. "Mr. Kane will find you, and when he does, there won't be no stranger to save you." He mounted his horse, yanked the reins, and spurred the animal back toward the trees. The other two followed without a word. Clara watched them go, her whole body trembling. Then her legs gave out completely. She collapsed onto the riverbank, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The adrenaline that had kept her moving drained away, leaving nothing but exhaustion and pain. For a long moment, she just lay there staring up at the sky through the canopy of leaves. Waiting for the stranger to leave too. Waiting for whatever came next. She heard him before she saw him. Boots splashing through shallow water. Steady footsteps approaching. Clara forced herself to sit up, one arm wrapped protectively around her ribs. Her eyes found him as he climbed the bank toward her. Up close, he looked older than she'd first thought. 30-something, maybe more. His face was weathered, tanned from years under the sun. A thin scar ran from his left temple down to his cheekbone. His eyes were gray-blue, the color of storm clouds before rain. He stopped a few feet away and looked down at her. Clara's throat tightened. "What do you want?" He didn't answer. "I said, what do you want?" Her voice cracked. "If you're expecting payment, I ain't got nothing. If you're expecting something else, you might as well shoot me now." The stranger's expression didn't change. He studied her for a moment, his gaze moving over the bruises on her face, the blood on her lip, the way she held her side. Then he crouched down, slow and careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "Can you walk?" His voice was low, rough like gravel under boots. It startled her. She hadn't expected him to speak at all. Clara tried to push herself up and gasped as pain lanced through her. "I don't know." He nodded once. Then, without asking permission, he reached down and lifted her. Clara's body went rigid. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to struggle, to get away. But something in the way he held her stopped her. His grip was firm but careful. There was no roughness, no threat. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere safe." "I don't know you." "No, ma'am, you don't." "Then why should I trust you?" He started walking, carrying her away from the river into the trees. He didn't answer her question. Clara wanted to argue, but the pain was too much. Her vision blurred at the edges. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the sky through the leaves and the silhouette of a stranger who had, for reasons she couldn't understand, chosen to save her. When Clara woke, she was lying on something soft. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to dim light. Wooden beams crossed the ceiling above her. A fire crackled somewhere nearby, filling the air with the smell of pine smoke and dried herbs. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Her ribs screamed in protest. "Easy!" The voice came from across the room. Clara turned her head and found the stranger sitting in a wooden chair near the hearth. He wasn't looking at her. His attention was on his hands, which were busy cleaning the barrel of his rifle with a worn cloth. "Where am I?" "My cabin." Clara's gaze moved around the small space. One room sparsely furnished. A table, a single bed, the one she was lying on, a few shelves lined with jars and dried plants. Everything clean but worn, like it had been used a long time by someone who didn't care about comfort. "How long was I out?" "Few hours." She touched her face, wincing at the tenderness. Someone had cleaned the blood from her lip. A damp cloth lay folded on the small table beside the bed. "You patched me up." "Some." Clara stared at him. He still hadn't looked at her. His hands moved steady over the rifle, methodical, like the task required all his focus. "Why?" Now he looked up. Those gray-blue eyes met hers, and for a moment Clara felt like he was seeing right through her. "Why what?" "Why did you help me? You don't know me. You don't owe me nothing." He held her gaze for a long moment. Then he turned back to his rifle. "No one deserves what they was doing to you. You don't know what I did, what I am. Don't matter." Clara felt something crack inside her chest. Not her ribs, something else. Something that had been frozen solid for longer than she could remember. They called me stolen property, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They ain't wrong. Virgil Kane bought me from my daddy 2 years ago, paid off his gambling debts. I was part of the deal. The stranger's hands paused on the rifle, just for a second. Man can't own a person. Tell that to Kane. Silence fell between them. The fire popped and hissed. What's your name? Clara asked. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter than before. Eli. Just Eli. Elijah McAllister. But nobody's called me that in a long time. Clara nodded slowly. I'm Clara. Clara Whitmore. Eli stood, setting the rifle aside. He moved to the small stove in the corner and lifted a pot. You hungry? Clara's stomach growled before she could finish. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Eli's lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was something. He ladled something into a tin bowl and brought it to her. Stew, simple but warm. He handed it over along with a wooden spoon, then stepped back. Clara hesitated, looking at the food, then at him. It ain't poisoned, he said dryly. That ain't... She stopped, embarrassed. Thank you. She ate slowly, each bite warming her from the inside. Eli returned to his chair and picked up the rifle again, but she noticed he wasn't really cleaning it anymore. He was watching her, though he pretended not to. Those men, Clara said between bites. They'll come back. Kane don't let things go. I know. You should let me leave, before they find me here. Before they find you. Eli's jaw tightened. They already saw my face. Already know which direction I went. Leaving now won't change that. Then you're a fool. Been called worse. Clara set the bowl down, her appetite gone. You don't understand. Kane owns half of Silver City. He's got money men connections. He'll burn this place down just to make a point. Let him try. The words were quiet, but there was steel underneath them. Clara studied Eli's face, trying to read him. You ain't afraid. Didn't say that. Then why risk everything for a stranger? Eli was silent for so long that Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said so softly she almost missed it. Because I wasn't there for someone else. Once. And I ain't making that mistake again. Clara didn't push. She recognized pain when she saw it. Whatever ghosts haunted this man, they weren't hers to unbury. Instead, she lay back against the pillow and stared at the ceiling. What happens now? Eli stood and moved toward the window, looking out at the darkness beyond. Now, he said, you rest. We figure out the rest come morning. Clara wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that morning might not come, that Kane's men could be riding through the night, that she was a death sentence walking. But exhaustion pulled at her like an anchor. Her eyes drifted closed. The last thing she heard was Eli's quiet footsteps as he moved to the door, rifle in hand, and the soft creak of wood as he settled into position. Watching, waiting, guarding a stranger he didn't know for reasons he refused to explain. And somewhere in the dark hollows of Clara's battered heart, something unfamiliar flickered to life. Hope. Fragile and small, but there. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't alone. Clara woke to the smell of coffee and the soft crackle of fire. Her body ached in places she'd forgotten existed. Every breath reminded her of the cracked ribs. Every movement sent pain shooting through her like lightning. But she was alive. That alone felt like a miracle. She turned her head slowly and found Eli sitting at the small wooden table, his back to her. A tin cup steamed between his hands. He hadn't slept. She could tell by the way his shoulders sat tight, coiled, ready. You stayed up all night, she said. He didn't turn around. Wasn't tired. Liar. Now he looked. Those gray-blue eyes found hers, and for just a moment, something flickered in them. Surprise, maybe. Or amusement. You always this mouthy when you wake up? Only when strange men carry me to cabins in the middle of nowhere." Eli's lips twitched. He stood, poured a second cup of coffee, and brought it to her bedside. Clara pushed herself up against the pillow, wincing, and took it with both hands. "Thank you." He nodded once and stepped back, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Clara sipped the coffee. It was bitter, strong enough to strip paint, but it warmed her from the inside. She watched Eli over the rim of the cup. "You do this often? Pick up strays?" "No." "Then why me?" Eli's jaw tightened. He looked away toward the window where pale morning light crept through the cracks in the shutters. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." Silence stretched between them. Clara waited. She'd learned patience in Cain's house. Learned to read the spaces between words, the things men didn't say. "I was a medic," Eli said finally. "During the war." Clara set her cup down. "Which side?" "Union." She nodded slowly. "My daddy fought for the Confederacy, came back missing 2 fingers and most of his mind." She paused. "That's when the drinking started, the gambling, everything else." Eli's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. A small loosening, like a rope that had been pulled too tight. "War breaks things," he said. "Men, families, everything." "Is that what broke you?" The question hung in the air. Clara regretted it immediately. Too forward, too fast. But Eli didn't snap at her. He just stared at the floor for a long moment. "Something like that." He pushed off the wall and moved toward the door. "I'm going to check the perimeter. There's bread in the cupboard if you're hungry. Don't go outside." "Eli." He stopped, hand on the doorframe. "I'm sorry," Clara said softly. "For prying. It ain't my business." He stood there for a beat. 2. Then, without turning around, he said, "Maybe one day it will be." And then he was gone. Clara stared at the empty doorway, her heart doing something strange in her chest. She told herself it was just the coffee. The morning passed slow. Clara forced herself to eat, though every bite felt like swallowing stones. Her stomach had shrunk during her weeks on the run, and the bread sat heavy. She tried to stand once. Her legs shook so bad she had to grab the bedpost to keep from falling. The second time went better. By noon she could make it to the window and back without collapsing. Progress. Eli returned midday with a brace of rabbits slung over his shoulder. He skinned them outside. She heard the soft scrape of blade against flesh and came back in with the meat ready for cooking. "You're up," he observed. "Barely." He set the meat on the table and went to work building up the fire. Clara watched him move. There was an economy to everything he did. No wasted motion, no hesitation. "You live out here alone?" she asked. "Yes." "For how long?" 7 years. Clara's eyebrows rose. 7 years. Don't you get lonely?" Eli fed another log to the flames. "Loneliness ain't the worst thing." "What is—" He paused, poker in hand, staring into the fire. "Watching someone you love die. That's worse." Clara's breath caught. She wanted to ask. Wanted to know who he'd lost, what had happened, why he'd buried himself out here in the middle of nowhere. But the look on his face stopped her. Some wounds weren't meant to be touched. Not yet. "I know something about that," she said quietly. Eli glanced at her. "My mama," Clara continued. "She died when I was 8. Fever took her. After that it was just me and my daddy." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He used to be a good man, or maybe I just wanted him to be. I don't know anymore." "He sold you?" It wasn't a question. "Yeah." Clara's voice hardened. "Looked me in the eye and told me it was for the best, that Cain would take care of me, that I should be grateful." She shook her head. "Grateful? Like I was a mule being traded for feed." Eli's hands had gone still on the poker. "When I get my strength back," Clara said, "I'm leaving. I won't bring my trouble down on you. You've done enough. Where will you go? I don't know. California, maybe. Somewhere Kane can't reach. He owns judges in California. Clara's stomach dropped. How do you know that? Eli finally looked at her. I know who Virgil Kane is. Everyone in the territory does. Then you know what he'll do to anyone who helps me. I do. And you don't care. Eli stood setting the poker aside. He crossed to the table and sat down across from her, his eyes never leaving her face. I've spent 7 years hiding from the world, Clara. Hiding from memories, from guilt, from everything I couldn't change. His voice was low, steady. I'm tired of hiding. Clara stared at him. You'd risk your life for a stranger. I already did. The moment I pulled that trigger at the river, you could have let them take me. No. The word was hard, final. I couldn't. Something passed between them. Something that made Clara's chest feel too tight and her eyes burn with tears she refused to let fall. Why? She whispered. Eli's jaw worked. He looked away, then back. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because I see her. Every time I close my eyes. Bleeding out in the mud while I held her hand. I couldn't save her. I was too late. He swallowed hard. I won't be too late again. Clara felt the words hit her like a physical blow. Who was she? My wife. The world seemed to stop. Her name was Martha. Eli continued, the words coming slow like they were being pulled from somewhere deep. She was a nurse. We served together. She was everything good in this world, and I... His voice cracked. I was supposed to meet her at the medical tent. There was an ambush. I got pinned down. By the time I reached her... He couldn't finish. Clara reached across the table without thinking. Her hand covered his. He flinched at the contact, but didn't pull away. I'm sorry, she said. It felt inadequate, too small for the weight of his grief. It was 10 years ago, Eli said. Some days it feels like yesterday. Grief don't follow time. He looked at her hand on his. Something shifted in his expression. The hardness softened just a fraction. You're wiser than you look. I'm older than I look, too. 24 feels like 50 after 2 years with Kane. Eli's thumb moved, barely perceptible, brushing against her knuckles. You're free now. Am I? The question hung between them. They both knew the answer. Kane would never stop looking, never stop hunting. Freedom was an illusion until he was gone. For now, Eli said. You're free for now, and for now is enough. Clara wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. Outside, a bird called. The fire crackled, and for one fragile moment, the world felt almost peaceful. Then came the sound of hooves. Eli was on his feet in an instant, rifle in hand. He moved to the window and pressed his back against the wall, peering through the crack in the shutters. How many? Clara's voice was tight. 1 horse, 1 rider. Kane's men? No. Eli relaxed just slightly. I know him. He crossed to the door and opened it. Clara craned her neck to see. A man rode into the clearing. He was older than Eli, with weathered brown skin and long dark hair streaked with gray. He wore buckskin and carried no visible weapon, but something about him radiated quiet danger. Sam, Eli said. The man Sam dismounted and approached. His eyes moved past Eli to where Clara sat on the bed. You got company. It wasn't a question. It's complicated. Always is with you. Sam tied his horse to the post and stepped inside. He removed his hat, a gesture of respect, and nodded to Clara. Ma'am. This is Clara, Eli said. Clara, this is Samuel Redfeather. Only friend I got within 100 miles. Sam's eyes swept over her bruises, her torn dress, the way she held herself like she expected to be hit at any moment. His expression darkened. Kane's doing... His men, Clara said. But yeah. Sam looked at Eli. You know what you're stepping into? I know. And you're doing it anyway. I am. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed a short, humorless sound. Figured you'd get yourself killed eventually. Didn't think it'd be over a woman. She's not just... I ain't blind, Eli. Sam's voice softened. Ain't stupid either. I see how you're looking at her. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks. Eli's jaw tightened. What do you know, Sam? Sam's expression turned serious. That's why I'm here. Kane's put out word. $500 for the girl. Another $200 for whoever's harboring her. He looked at Clara. You're worth a small fortune, miss. Clara's stomach turned to ice. $700. More than most folks see in a lifetime. He's making an example, she whispered. Showing everyone what happens when you run. That's what I figure. Eli's grip on his rifle tightened. How many men does he have looking? A dozen, maybe more. They've been hitting settlements up and down the Pecos, asking questions, offering money. Sam paused. Someone's going to talk Eli. It's only a matter of time. Then we need to move. Move where Kane's got eyes everywhere. Not everywhere. Sam frowned. You're not thinking... The canyon, Eli said. The one we found during the war. Nobody knows about it but us. That's a 3-day ride. She's in no condition to... Then I'll carry her. Clara struggled to her feet. Don't I get a say in this? Both men turned to look at her. I ain't some package to be delivered, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. And I ain't letting either of you die for me. Little late for that, miss, Sam said. No. Clara shook her head. There's another way. Which is... She looked at Eli. Kane don't just want me back. He wants to punish me. Make an example. She took a shaky breath. But what if I gave him something he wants more? Eli's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? His money, Clara said. I know where he keeps it. The safe in his office. I know the combination. Sam let out a low whistle. How much? Eli asked. Last I counted, over $30,000. Cash, gold, bonds. Everything he's stolen from miners and ranchers and anyone too weak to stop him. And you think that'll make him stop hunting you? No. Clara's voice hardened. I think it'll make him desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. Eli stared at her. Something new flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. That's a dangerous game. I've been playing dangerous games since I was 18. At least this time I get to choose my own stakes. Sam looked between them. She's got fire, Eli. I'll give her that. Fire gets people killed. So does running, Clara shot back. So does hiding. You said you were tired of hiding. Well, so am I. The words hit Eli like a fist. Clara saw it in the way his shoulders shifted, the way his jaw tightened. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Eli nodded slowly. All right, we do this your way. Eli, Sam started. She's right. Running won't end this. Kane won't stop until he's got nothing left to fight for. So we rob him, Sam said flatly. We take back what he stole. Eli looked at Clara. There's a difference. Clara felt something bloom in her chest. Not quite hope. Something stronger. When do we start? Soon, Eli said. But not until you're healed. I'm fine. You can barely stand. I'm standing now, ain't I? Eli's lips twitched, that almost smile again. You're stubborn. Learned from the best. Who? Pain, Clara said simply. Pain taught me everything. The smile died on Eli's face. He looked at her, really looked, and Clara felt stripped bare, exposed. Then we teach Kane something about pain, he said quietly. Sam shook his head, but he was grinning. You two are gonna get us all killed. Probably, Eli agreed. But it'll be one hell of a ride. Clara laughed. It surprised her, the sound bubbling up from somewhere she'd thought was dead. It was rusty, broken, but real. Eli watched her laugh, and something in his eyes shifted. Softened. "Rest tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we plan." "And after that?" "After that?" Eli picked up his rifle. "We make Virgil Kane regret the day he laid hands on you." Clara looked at this man, this broken, silent, haunted man who had pulled her from the river and refused to let go. She didn't understand him, didn't know why he'd chosen her of all people to save, but she was starting to think that maybe she didn't need to understand. Some things just were. "Eli," she said as he moved toward the door. He stopped. "Thank you for everything." He stood there, framed in the doorway, the setting sun casting long shadows across his face. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "This is just the beginning." And then he was gone, leaving Clara alone with the fire and the silence and the dangerous, terrifying, wonderful feeling that maybe, just maybe, she'd found something worth fighting for. 3 days passed before Clara could walk without swaying. Eli watched her pace the length of the cabin, back and forth, testing her legs like a newborn colt finding its footing. He said nothing, but she caught him looking, always looking. "I'm ready," she said on the 4th morning. "You ain't." "I've been ready since the day I ran." Eli set down his cup. "Ready and able ain't the same thing." "Then make them the same." Clara planted her hands on the table and leaned forward. "Teach me." "Teach you what?" "To fight, to shoot, to stop being afraid of my own shadow." Eli studied her face. The bruises had faded to yellow-green healing, but not gone. Her eyes, though, those had changed. The fear was still there, buried deep, but something else burned alongside it now. Something fierce. "You ever fired a gun before?" "Once. Kane's men took it from me before I could pull the trigger." "Who were you aiming at, Hall?" "Kane." Eli's expression flickered. "And you missed?" "I didn't get the chance to find out." He stood crossed to the shelf and pulled down a smaller pistol, lighter than his rifle, worn but well maintained. He held it out to her. Clara took it. The weight felt foreign in her hands, cold and heavy with possibility. "First rule," Eli said. "Never point it at something you don't intend to kill." "I understand." "Second rule, when the time comes, don't hesitate. Hesitation gets you buried." Clara's fingers tightened around the grip. "I won't hesitate." "We'll see." He led her outside, past the tree line, to a small clearing where Sam had set up makeshift targets, old cans balanced on fence posts, a torn flour sack stuffed with straw. "Show me your stance." Clara raised the pistol arms, locked, feet planted. "Wrong." Eli moved behind her. His hands found her shoulders, adjusting her position. "Feet apart. Weight forward. You fire like that, the kick'll knock you on your back." His touch was clinical, practical, but Clara felt it everywhere. "Better," he said, stepping away. "Now aim for the center can." She squinted, squeezed the trigger. The shot went wide, splintering a branch 3 feet to the left. "Again!" She fired, missed. "Again!" Another miss. Clara growled in frustration. "You're flinching before you fire," Eli said, anticipating the kick. "Your body's fighting you." "Then how do I stop?" "You breathe, you focus, and you stop thinking about missing." Clara lowered the gun, her arms trembling from tension. "Easy for you to say." "Ain't nothing easy about any of this." She looked at him, really looked. The scars, the hard lines around his mouth, the ghosts that lived behind his eyes. "How many men have you killed?" The question hung in the air. "Enough," Eli said quietly. "Does it get easier?" "No." He met her gaze. "And if it ever does, that's when you've lost something you can't get back." Clara raised the pistol again. This time she breathed first. Slow. Deep. She found the center can in her sights and let everything else fade away. She fired. The can flew off the post. Eli nodded once. "Better." By sundown, Clara's arms ached and her ears rang from gunfire, but she'd hit more targets than she'd missed. It wasn't enough. Not nearly. But it was a start. Sam rode in just as the last light faded. "We got trouble," he said, not bothering to dismount. Eli tensed. "How close?" "A day out, maybe less. Kane's men are working their way up the valley. 15 riders." Clara's stomach dropped. "How do they know where to look?" "Someone talked. Old prospector down at Miller's Creek. Said he saw a woman matching your description heading north." Sam looked at her with something like sympathy. Word spreads fast when there's money involved. "We need to move," Clara said. "Running won't help now," Eli replied. "They'll track us. We don't know the land well enough to disappear." "Then what? We just wait here for them to find us?" "No." Eli's jaw set. "We go to them." Sam laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to ride toward 15 armed men." "Not toward, around." Eli looked at Clara. "You said Kane keeps his money in Silver City, in his office." "Yeah, but if his men are out here looking for you, that means fewer men guarding him." Clara's eyes widened as she understood. "You want to hit him while his dogs are chasing shadows?" "I want to take everything that makes him powerful. His money, his reputation, his belief that he can do whatever he wants without consequence." Sam shook his head slowly. "That's either the smartest thing I've ever heard or the dumbest." "Probably both," Eli admitted. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. "When do we leave?" "Tonight. We ride through the dark, stay off the main trails. If we're lucky, we'll reach Silver City by tomorrow night." "And if we're not lucky?" Eli checked his rifle. "Then we'll give them a fight they won't forget." They rode out under a moonless sky. Clara sat behind Eli on his horse, her arms wrapped around his waist. She told herself it was for balance. But feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing, the warmth of his back against her chest, it grounded her in ways she didn't want to examine too closely. Sam led the way, navigating by stars and instinct. They followed dry creek beds and deer trails, avoiding anything that resembled a road. Nobody spoke. There wasn't anything to say. Hours passed. Clara's legs went numb from riding, and her ribs protested every jolt, but she didn't complain, didn't ask to stop. Every mile put them closer to Kane and farther from the men hunting her. As dawn broke, they stopped in a shallow canyon to rest the horses. 2 hours, Sam said. Then we move again. Clara slid off the horse and nearly collapsed. Eli caught her arm. Easy. I'm fine. You keep saying that. And I keep meaning it. He almost smiled. Almost. Clara sat against a rock, pulling her knees to her chest. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. She closed her eyes. Clara. She opened them. Eli crouched in front of her, holding out a canteen. Drink. You'll need your strength. She took it, their fingers brushing. Neither of them pulled away. Eli, she said quietly. Can I ask you something? Depends on what it is. After this is over, if we survive, what happens? He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to happen? Clara looked at him. This man who had pulled her from the river, nursed her wounds, taught her to shoot. This man who carried more grief than anyone should, and still found room to care about a stranger. I don't know how to want things anymore, she admitted. Kane took that from me. The ability to imagine a future. Eli's expression softened. Then we start small. How? One day at a time. One choice at a time. He paused. And maybe when the dust settles, you figure out what you want. And I figure out if I'm brave enough to ask for what I want. Clara's breath caught. What do you want, Eli? He held her gaze for a long, charged moment. Then he stood. Ask me when this is over. He walked away, leaving Clara with a question that burned hotter than any fever. They reached the outskirts of Silver City as the sun began to set. Clara's body hummed with tension. This was the place of her nightmares. The streets she'd walked in chains invisible to everyone who passed. The windows she'd stared through dreaming of escape. "How do we get in?" Sam asked. "Kane's office is on the second floor of the Grand Hotel," Clara said. "He owns the whole building. There's a back staircase the servants use. Guards. 2 at the front, usually 1 at the back door. But if his men are still out looking for me, there might be less. And the safe? In his private study, behind a painting of some battle scene. Combinations 3 numbers, his birthday, his first wife's birthday, and the year he struck his first silver claim." Sam whistled low. "You paid attention." Survival meant paying attention. Eli checked his pistol. "We go in quiet. Take out any guards without raising alarm. Clara opens the safe. We take everything and disappear before anyone knows what happened." "And if something goes wrong?" Sam asked. "Then we improvise." Clara grabbed Eli's arm. "Wait!" He stopped. "If this goes bad," she said, "if Kane catches us, don't let him take me alive. Promise me." Eli's face hardened. "That ain't gonna happen." "Promise me, Eli." He stared at her, something raw and painful flickering in his eyes. Then he nodded once. "I promise." They moved through the darkening streets like ghosts. Clara led them down back alleys and service entrances, pathways she'd memorized during her captivity. The Grand Hotel loomed ahead, its windows glowing with lamplight. "There." She pointed to a narrow door half hidden behind a stack of crates. "The servants' entrance." Sam checked the door. Locked. "Move aside." Eli pulled a thin piece of metal from his boot and worked it into the lock. Seconds later, it clicked open. They slipped inside. The back hallway smelled of cigar smoke and old wood. Clara's heart pounded so loud she was sure someone would hear it. "Second floor," she whispered. "Third door on the left." They climbed the narrow staircase, every creak of wood making Clara flinch. At the top, a single guard stood outside a door half asleep against the wall. Sam moved first. Before the guard could react, Sam's arm wrapped around his throat, choking off any sound. The man struggled for a moment, then went limp. Sam lowered him gently to the floor. "He'll wake up in an hour with a headache," Sam murmured. "Nothing worse." Eli tried the door. Unlocked. They entered Kane's private study. Clara's stomach churned. She knew this room. Knew the smell of it, whiskey and leather, and something sour underneath. Knew the desk where Kane had signed papers while she stood in the corner, silent, invisible. "Clara!" Eli's voice pulled her back. "The safe." She crossed to the wall and found the painting, a garish depiction of some Civil War battle. She swung it aside, revealing the iron door of a wall safe. Her fingers trembled as she spun the dial. Right to 15. Left to 23. Right to 52. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside, stacks of cash. Gold coins. Bonds and deeds. Everything Kane had stolen, extorted, and hoarded for decades. "Lord have mercy," Sam breathed. Clara started pulling out the contents, stuffing them into the saddlebags Eli had brought. Her hands worked fast, mechanical, trying not to think about what would happen if they were caught. "Almost done," she said. That's when the door behind them opened. Well, well. Clara's blood turned to ice. Virgil Kane stood in the doorway, a pistol in his hand and a smile on his face. He looked exactly as she remembered, short, thick, with small eyes that held no warmth. His suit was expensive, his rings catching the lamplight. "I knew you'd come back," Kane said. "They always do." Eli moved in front of Clara, his hand going for his gun. Ah. Kane raised his pistol higher. "I've got 6 men outside this door. You shoot me, they fill you with holes before you hit the ground. Then we all die together," Eli said. Brave words from a dead man. Kane's eyes moved past Eli to Clara. "Hello, sweetheart. Did you miss me?" Clara forced herself to meet his gaze. "I dreamed about killing you every night." "Such fire. That's what I always loved about you." Kane stepped further into the room. "You know, I thought about just sending the boys to drag you back. But then I figured, why not let you come to me, save everyone the trouble?" "You knew we were coming," Clara whispered. "Of course I knew. Did you really think Miller, that old prospector, talked by accident? I paid him to talk. Paid him to point my men in one direction while I waited here. It was a trap. All of it." Sam cursed under his breath. "Now," Kane said, gesturing with his pistol, "here's how this is going to work. You're going to put everything back in my safe. Then your friends here are going to leave. And you, Clara, are going to come home where you belong. I'd rather die." "That can be arranged. Eventually. But first we're going to have a conversation about respect. About what happens to property that forgets its place." Eli's body tensed. Clara could feel the violence coiling in him, ready to explode. "Eli, don't," she said. "Listen to the lady." Kane smirked. But Clara wasn't trying to stop Eli from fighting. She was buying time. Because behind Kane, through the crack in the door, she saw something he didn't. A woman's face, gray hair, hard eyes. Ruth Hawkins. The woman who ran the general store. The first person who'd been kind to Clara when she'd escaped. Clara had stopped there on her flight out of Silver City, bleeding and desperate. Ruth had given her food, bandages, and a warning about Kane's men. Ruth held a finger to her lips. Clara kept her eyes on Kane, forcing herself not to look at the door. "You think you've won," Clara said, keeping her voice steady. "But you haven't. No, I've got you cornered, your friends outgunned, and my money right where I left it. What exactly have I lost?" Clara smiled. "Your future." Kane's brow furrowed. "What?" The door slammed open. Ruth stepped in, not with a gun, but with a torch. Behind her, 3 men, townspeople Clara recognized from her brief time in Silver City. "What the hell is this?" Kane spun around. "This is a reckoning, Virgil," Ruth said coldly. "You've terrorized this town for 20 years, bought the sheriff, bought the judge, beaten your wives and treated women like cattle. We've had enough. You think a few shopkeepers can stop me? No, but we can burn down this building while you're in it." Kane's face went pale. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me." Ruth's torch flickered. "You've got about 30 seconds to drop that gun and walk out of here. Otherwise, we all go up together." Clara grabbed Eli's arm. "We need to move." "Not without the money." "Take it," Ruth said without looking at them. "Take every cent. It's stolen anyway. Consider it justice." Kane's hand shook. His eyes darted between Ruth, the torch, Eli, Clara. For the first time since she'd known him, Virgil Kane looked afraid. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes," Clara said, stepping forward. "It is." She looked him in the eye. This man who had owned her, beaten her, tried to break her. "I'm not your property anymore, Virgil. I never was. And after tonight, everyone in this territory will know what kind of monster you really are." Kane's face twisted with rage. For a moment, Clara thought he'd shoot her anyway. Consequences be damned. Then he dropped the gun. It clattered to the floor. Eli grabbed it, keeping his own weapon trained on Kane. Sam finished loading the saddlebags. "Time to go," Sam said. They moved toward the door, past Kane, past Ruth and her torch. At the threshold, Clara paused. "Ruth." The older woman looked at her. "Thank you." Ruth's hard expression softened just for a moment. "Don't thank me, child. Just live. Live well. That's revenge enough." Clara nodded and followed Eli into the night. They rode hard until the lights of Silver City disappeared behind them. Nobody followed. Either Kane's men hadn't been alerted, or they'd been intercepted by Ruth's people. Clara didn't know, didn't care. All that mattered was the wind in her hair and the man riding beside her. When they finally stopped hours later in a sheltered canyon miles from anywhere, Clara slid off her horse and laughed. It bubbled up from somewhere deep, uncontrollable, slightly hysterical. Eli watched her. "You all right?" "No," she gasped between laughs. "I'm not all right. I just robbed the most dangerous man in New Mexico with a one-armed plan and a woman with a torch." Sam chuckled. "When you put it like that, we did it." Clara's laughter faded into something else. Tears. "We actually did it." Eli dismounted and crossed to her. Without a word, he pulled her into his arms. Clara stiffened for just a moment. Then she let herself collapse against him, her face pressed into his chest, her whole body shaking with sobs she'd held back for years. He didn't say anything, just held her. When she finally pulled back, her eyes red and swollen, he cupped her face in his rough hands. "You did it," he said quietly. "You stood up to him. You took back your power. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could. You just didn't know it yet." Clara looked up at him, at this man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. "Eli." "Not yet," he murmured. "Ask me when the dust settles. Remember." She managed a watery smile. "The dust is settling." "Not quite." His thumb brushed a tear from her cheek. "But soon." He released her and turned to help Sam unload the saddlebags. Clara stood there, her heart full of something she couldn't name. They had won, against all odds, against every expectation they had won. But as she looked at the darkness surrounding them, she couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't over yet. Some victories come with a cost, and Virgil Kane was not a man who forgave. 2 weeks passed like a held breath. They stayed in the canyon, hidden from the world. Sam had ridden out to scout the territory, returning every few days with news. Kane was furious. He'd offered $1,000 for information, $2,000 for Clara's head. "He's desperate," Sam said one evening, warming his hands by the fire. "A man like Kane don't lose face without hitting back hard." "Let him come," Eli replied. "You say that like you want him to." "Maybe I do." Clara watched the exchange from her seat on a flat rock nearby. She'd grown stronger over the past 2 weeks. Her ribs had healed. The bruises had faded to nothing. But something else had changed too. Something inside her. "Eli," she said quietly. Both men looked at her. "I don't want anyone else dying for me." "Nobody's dying," Eli said. "You don't know that." "Then I'll make sure of it." Sam shook his head. "You two are something else, you know that." Clara stood and walked toward the edge of their small camp. The money from Kane's safe was hidden in a cave nearby, wrapped in oilcloth and buried under stones. $30,000. Enough to start a new life anywhere in the world. But she couldn't leave. Not yet. And she was starting to understand why. Eli appeared beside her, silent as always. He didn't speak, just stood there close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I never thanked you properly," Clara said. "You've thanked me plenty. Not for saving my life. For—" she struggled to find the words. "For making me feel like it was worth saving." Eli was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "The day I found you by that river, I was planning to leave. Move further west. Find somewhere even more remote." Clara looked at him. "Why didn't you—" "Because when I saw you, I saw Martha." Her heart clenched. "I'm not her, Eli." "I know." He turned to face her. "But you reminded me of something I'd forgotten." "What?" "That some things are worth fighting for, even when you've given up on fighting." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "Eli, I spent 10 years running from ghosts," he continued, "telling myself I didn't deserve anything good because I couldn't save her. But watching you these past weeks, watching you fight back, choose to live instead of just survive." He paused. "You made me want to choose too." "Choose what?" He reached out, his calloused fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You." The word hung between them, electric and terrifying. "I ain't asking for anything," he said quickly. I know you've been through hell. I know trust don't come easy. But I needed you to know. Whatever happens next, whatever Cain throws at us, I'm choosing you. I chose you the moment I pulled that trigger at the river." Clara's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Eli McAllister," she whispered. "You are the strangest, most stubborn, most infuriating man I've ever met." His jaw tightened. "I reckon that's fair. And I'm choosing you too." For a moment he didn't move. Then his hands cupped her face and he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, two broken people clinging to each other like the world might end tomorrow. Because it might. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Eli pressed his forehead to hers. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together." "Together," she agreed. From across the camp, Sam's voice drifted over. "You two done because we got company." They sprang apart. "What kind of company?" Eli called, already reaching for his rifle. "The bad kind." Clara's blood went cold. Sam pointed toward the canyon's entrance. In the fading light, she could see them riders, at least a dozen, moving in formation. "Cain," she breathed. "Looks like." Sam was already loading his weapon. "Somehow he tracked us." "That's impossible. We covered our trail." "Nothing's impossible when you got enough money." Eli grabbed Clara's arm. "You need to go." "What?" "Take a horse and ride. Head for the mountains. I'll find you when this is over." "No." Clara pulled away. "I'm not running." "Clara." "I said no." Her voice echoed off the canyon walls. "You just told me we face this together. Did you mean it or not?" Eli's jaw clenched. "I meant it." "Then stop trying to protect me and start trusting me to protect myself." For a tense moment, they stared at each other. Then Eli nodded curtly. "Fine. Sam, how much time?" 5 minutes, maybe less." "Not enough." Eli's mind raced. "We can't fight them head on, not 12 men." "Then we don't fight fair," Clara said. Both men looked at her. "The canyon narrows up ahead. There's a choke point where only 2 horses can pass side by side. If we can get them bunched up there." Sam's eyes lit up. "We catch them in a crossfire." "Exactly." Eli almost smiled. "You've been paying attention." "I've been surviving." "There's a difference." They moved fast. Sam rode ahead to position himself on one side of the choke point. Eli and Clara climbed the rocky slope to the other side, finding cover behind a cluster of boulders. "You ever killed a man?" Eli asked as they settled into position. "No." "It changes you." "I know." "If you can't do it." Clara checked her pistol, the one Eli had given her. "I can do it." The sound of hooves grew louder. "Here they come!" Sam's voice carried across the gap. Clara pressed herself against the rock, her heart slamming against her ribs. She could see them now, dark shapes moving through the narrow passage. Leading them was a man she recognized. Silas. Her stomach turned. "Hold," Eli whispered beside her. "Wait until they're in the middle." The riders advanced. 5, 7, 10. "Now!" Eli fired first. One rider dropped. Sam's shot echoed from across the canyon. Another fell. Chaos erupted. The horses panicked, rearing and screaming. Men cursed and shouted, trying to control their mounts while bullets rained down from above. Clara aimed. Her hands shook. She saw a man raising his rifle toward Sam's position. She pulled the trigger. The gun kicked. The man jerked and fell from his horse. Something cold and terrible settled in Clara's chest. She'd just killed someone. A human being. But she didn't have time to think about it. "Reload!" Eli shouted. She fumbled with the bullets, her fingers slick with sweat. Around her, the gunfire was deafening. "I'm out!" Sam yelled. "Fall back!" The riders were regrouping now, pushing forward despite the losses. 5 men remained mounted, plus however many had taken cover. "We need to move." Eli grabbed Clara's arm. The position's compromised. They scrambled down the slope, half sliding on loose rocks. At the bottom, Eli's horse waited where they'd left it. "Get on!" Clara mounted first. Eli swung up behind her, one arm around her waist, the other holding his rifle. "Sam, right behind you." They rode hard deeper into the canyon. Bullets whizzed past close enough that Clara could feel the air move. Then Eli grunted. "Eli, keep riding." But she felt it now, something warm and wet spreading across her back where his arm pressed against her. "You're hit. I said keep riding." They burst out of the canyon's far end and into open terrain. Behind them, the sound of pursuit faded, the remaining riders apparently unwilling to follow into the darkness. "There." Sam pointed to a rocky outcrop ahead. "We can shelter there." They reached the rocks and dismounted. Eli slid from the horse and immediately collapsed against the stone, his face pale in the moonlight. "Let me see." Clara knelt beside him, her hands already working at his shirt. The bullet had hit his side just above the hip. Blood poured from the wound, dark and relentless. "It's not bad," Eli said through gritted teeth. "You're a terrible liar." Sam appeared with a canteen and a strip of cloth. "How bad?" "Bad enough." Clara pressed the cloth against the wound, trying to staunch the bleeding. "I need to get the bullet out." "Can you do it?" "I don't know." Her voice cracked. "I read Eli's medical notes, but I never actually—" "Then learn fast," Sam said grimly. "Because if we don't stop that bleeding, he's dead by morning." Clara's hands trembled. Everything she'd learned, everything Eli had taught her, seemed to vanish from her mind. "Clara," Eli's voice was weak but steady. "Look at me." She met his eyes. "You can do this." "I can't. I don't know how." "You stood up to Cain. You killed a man to save Sam. You've survived things that would have broken most people." His hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "You can do this." Clara took a shaky breath, then another. "Sam, I need a fire. Water. Something sharp and clean." "Already on it." While Sam worked, Clara examined the wound more closely. The bullet had entered at an angle, lodging somewhere beneath the surface. She could feel it when she pressed gently, a hard lump that didn't belong. "This is going to hurt," she said. "I've had worse." "No, you haven't." Eli actually laughed, then winced. "Just do it." Sam returned with a knife, heated over the small fire until it glowed. Clara took it, her hand steadier now than it had been moments ago. "Hold him down." Sam braced Eli's shoulders. Clara positioned the blade. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and then she cut. Eli's scream echoed off the rocks. Clara worked fast, ignoring the blood, ignoring his groans, ignoring everything except the task in front of her. She found the bullet, a twisted piece of metal, lodged against bone, and extracted it with shaking fingers. "Got it." She poured water over the wound, then pressed clean cloth against it. The bleeding was slowing. That was good. That had to be good. "Is it over?" Eli's voice was barely audible. "The worst of it." She bandaged him as best she could, using strips torn from her own dress. When she was done, her hands were covered in his blood. "You saved my life," Eli murmured. "Now we're even." He tried to smile. Not even close. Sam stood watch while Clara sat beside Eli, holding his hand through the long hours of night. His fever spiked around midnight, and she sponged his face with cool water, murmuring words she barely registered. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Don't you dare leave me now." His hand tightened on hers, and she knew he'd heard. Dawn came slowly. Eli's fever broke just as the first light touched the rocks. He opened his eyes, found Clara's face, and smiled. "Still here." "Still here," she agreed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sam rode in from his lookout position. "We got trouble." Clara's heart sank. More riders. Just one. But you're gonna want to see this. She stood on shaking legs and followed Sam to the edge of their shelter. A single rider approached across the flat terrain. Even at a distance, Clara recognized the figure. Ruth Hawkins. What's she doing here? Clara breathed. Only one way to find out. They waited, weapons ready, until Ruth reached them. The older woman dismounted slowly, her face grim. Brought news, she said. And it ain't good. Kane. Dead. Clara's world tilted. What? Last night after you all left, mob formed. Folks who'd been afraid of him for years, once they saw someone stand up to him, they found their courage. Ruth's voice was flat. Dragged him out of the hotel, strung him up in the town square. Clara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. It's over, child. He can't hurt you anymore. Over. After everything, the running, the fighting, the blood, it was over. Not because they'd won, but because an entire town had finally said enough. The men who chased us, Sam asked. Most of them scattered when they heard. Fewer in jail. The rest, Ruth shrugged. Gone like smoke. Clara's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the rocky ground, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. Kane was dead. She was free. Really, truly free. Ruth crouched in front of her. I know it don't feel real yet, but it will. Give it time. Why did you come all this way to tell us? Because you deserve to hear it from someone who was there. Ruth paused. And because I wanted to make sure you were all right. Clara looked at this woman, this stranger who'd risked everything to help her, first with food and bandages, then with a torch and a reckoning. Thank you, Clara whispered. For everything. Ruth stood, brushing off her skirt. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You're the one who started all this. You're the one who reminded people that some things are worth fighting for. She mounted her horse. What will you do now? Clara asked. Go home, rebuild, try to make Silver City into something worth being proud of. Ruth looked down at her. What about you? Clara glanced back toward the shelter where Eli lay recovering. I'm not sure yet. Ruth smiled. I think you are. You just ain't ready to say it out loud. She tipped her hat and rode away, leaving Clara standing in the morning light with her heart full of something she couldn't quite name. She returned to the shelter and found Eli awake, propped up against the rocks. Heard voices, he said. Clara knelt beside him. Kane's dead. Eli blinked. What? The town turned on him. After we left. Ruth just brought the news. For a long moment, Eli said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for years. It's over then. It's over. He reached for her hand. How do you feel? Clara considered the question. She expected relief, joy even. But what she felt was more complicated than that. I don't know, she admitted. I spent so long being afraid of him, hating him, planning what I'd do when I was finally free. And now? Now you have to figure out who you are without him. She nodded. Eli squeezed her hand. I know something about that. Your wife, Martha. He said the name like it was precious fragile. For years, I defined myself by her death, by my failure to save her. It took meeting you to realize that grief ain't an identity. It's just a part of the story. What's the rest of the story? I'm still writing it. He looked at her, something vulnerable in his eyes. I was hoping maybe you'd want to write it with me. Clara's heart stuttered. Eli, I ain't proposing, not yet, but I'm asking if you'd be willing to stay, to see where this goes, to build something together. She thought about everything she'd been through, the cage Kane had kept her in, the river where Eli had found her, the nights of terror and the mornings of quiet peace, the way his hand felt in hers, steady and sure. I don't know how to be loved, she said quietly. Cain made sure of that. Then we learn together. What if I'm too broken? Then we're too broken together. Clara laughed, a wet sound somewhere between joy and grief. You make it sound so simple. It ain't simple, but nothing worth having ever is. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. Soft this time. Gentle. Yes, she whispered against his mouth. Yes, I'll stay. I'll build. I'll learn. She pulled back to look at him. With you. Eli's face transformed. The hard lines softened. The shadows in his eyes retreated just for a moment. Then let's go home. Clara frowned. Home? Your cabin burned down. Then we build a new one. He tried to sit up, wincing. We got enough money to build 10 cabins, 50, a whole damn town if we wanted. A town might be a bit much. Fine, a ranch then, somewhere with good water and room for horses. You want horses? Martha always wanted horses. His voice caught on the name, but he pushed through. I think she'd like knowing I finally got some. Clara felt tears threaten again. Then we'll get horses. Sam appeared in the shelter's entrance. If you two are done being sweet on each other, I'd like to know what the plan is. We're going home, Eli said. Home where? Don't know yet, but we'll find it. Sam shook his head, but he was smiling. You crazy kids are going to be the death of me. Probably, Clara agreed. They rested through the day, letting Eli gather strength. By evening, he could stand with help. By the next morning, he could walk. You heal fast, Clara observed. Got a good nurse. I'm not a nurse. No, you're better. They packed their supplies, what little remained, and loaded the horses. The money from Cain's safe went into saddlebags still wrapped in oilcloth. Where to? Sam asked as they mounted up. Eli looked at Clara. Lady's choice. Clara considered. The whole territory spread out before her, full of possibilities she'd never imagined. North, she said finally. I heard there's good land up near the Colorado border. Rivers, mountains, room to breathe. Colorado it is. They rode out as the sun climbed higher, leaving behind the canyon where they'd hidden the territory where Clara had suffered the past that had nearly destroyed them both. Ahead, the horizon stretched endless and golden. Clara looked at the man beside her, this silent cowboy who had saved her, challenged her, believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. She thought about Martha, a ghost who would always live in Eli's heart. About Cain, now nothing but a body in the ground. About Ruth, who had shown her that courage was contagious. And about herself, a girl who had begged for death by a riverbank, now riding toward a future she got to choose. Eli, she said. He looked at her. I'm glad you were late. He frowned. What? To meet Martha that day. I know it destroyed you. I know you've carried it for 10 years. But if you'd died with her, she swallowed hard. You wouldn't have been at the river, and I'd be dead, or worse. Eli was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I never thought about it like that. Maybe it's time you did. He reached over across the gap between their horses and took her hand. Maybe it is. They rode north toward mountains and rivers and the promise of something new. And somewhere, somehow, Clara felt certain that Martha was smiling. The journey north took them through territory Clara had never seen. They rode for 5 days, stopping only when the horses needed rest, or when Eli's wound demanded attention. Sam scouted ahead, checking for trouble, while Clara stayed close to Eli's side. You're hovering, he said on the 3rd day. I'm being careful. Same thing? No, it ain't. Hovering is annoying. Careful is smart. Eli almost smiled. You always this stubborn. You already know the answer to that. They made camp that night, near a creek, the water running clear and cold. Sam built a fire while Clara checked Eli's bandages. The wound was healing well. No infection, no fever. Whatever she'd done that desperate night, it had worked. "You're gonna have a scar," she said. "Got plenty of those." "This one's different." "How so?" Clara tied off the fresh bandage and sat back on her heels. "Because I gave it to you." Eli looked at her, something shifting in his eyes. "You saved my life. I cut you open with a hot knife. And pulled out a bullet that would have killed me. Same thing." Clara shook her head, but she was smiling. "You've got a strange way of looking at things, Eli McAllister." "So I've been told." Sam returned with an armful of firewood. "We're about 2 days out from the Colorado border. After that, we need to decide where we're heading." "There's a town called Ridgeway," Eli said. "I passed through years ago. Good land, good people. Far enough from anything that Kane's name won't mean much." "You think they'll welcome strangers?" "They'll welcome money, and we've got plenty of that." Clara thought about the saddlebags full of cash and gold. Blood money in a way. Stolen from a man who'd stolen it from others. But maybe that was fitting. Maybe the best revenge against Kane wasn't his death, but using his fortune to build something good. "Ridgeway it is," she said. They crossed into Colorado on a bright morning that felt like a promise. Clara had never been this far north. The air was different here, thinner, cleaner, carrying the scent of pine instead of desert sage. She breathed deep and felt something loosen in her chest. "You all right?" Eli asked. "I think so." She paused. "I think I might actually be all right." "That's progress." "It's terrifying." Eli reached over and squeezed her hand. "I know." They reached Ridgeway 3 days later. It was smaller than Clara had expected, a single main street lined with wooden buildings, a church at one end, and a saloon at the other. People moved about their business, nodding at strangers, but not staring. "Seems quiet," Sam observed. "That's the point," Eli replied. They found a boarding house and paid for rooms 2 for now until they figured out their next move. The owner, a stout woman named Mrs. Garrett, looked them over with shrewd eyes. "You folks running from something. Running toward something," Clara said. "There's a difference." Mrs. Garrett studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I reckon there is. Dinner's at 6. Don't be late." That night they sat around a table in the boarding house's small dining room. Mrs. Garrett served roast chicken and potatoes, simple but filling. Clara ate more than she had in weeks. "So, what's the plan?" Sam asked between bites. "Land," Eli said. "We find a good piece of property, build a house, start fresh." "You know anything about ranching?" "I know about hard work. Rest I can learn." Sam shook his head. "You're crazy." "Probably." Clara set down her fork. "What about you, Sam? What will you do?" The older man was quiet for a moment. "I've got a sister up near Denver. Haven't seen her in years. Maybe it's time I paid her a visit." "You're leaving?" "Not right away. I'll help you get settled first. But after that..." He shrugged. "I'm getting too old for gunfights and midnight rides. Time I found some peace of my own." Clara felt a pang of sadness. Sam had become family these past weeks, quiet, steady, always there when they needed him. "You'll always have a place with us," she said. "You know that, right?" Sam's weathered face softened. "I know it, Miss Clara, and I appreciate it more than I can say." The next morning, Eli went to talk to the local land office. Clara stayed behind, helping Mrs. Garrett with the dishes. It felt strange doing something so normal. For 2 years, her life had been fear and survival. Now here she was, elbow deep in soapy water, talking about weather and recipes. "You've got sadness in your eyes," Mrs. Garrett said suddenly. Clara's hand stilled. "Ma'am, I've seen it before, in women who've been through hard times." The older woman's voice was gentle. "You don't have to talk about it, but I want you to know whatever happened, it doesn't define you. Not here. Not anymore." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "How do you know?" "Because I've been where you are. Different circumstances, same feeling." Mrs. Garrett dried a plate with methodical care. My husband was a hard man, mean when he drank. Took me 15 years to get free of him, but I did. And now I run this place, answer to nobody, and sleep through the night without fearing what morning might bring. What happened to him? Drank himself to death. I buried him out back and never shed a single tear. Clara stared at her. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Mrs. Garrett looked at her directly. Your man, the quiet one with the sad eyes, he's different, isn't he? Yes. Hold on to that. Good men are rare. When you find one, you fight for him. I intend to. Mrs. Garrett smiled. Then you're gonna be just fine. Eli returned that afternoon with news. Found a place, he said, spreading a hand-drawn map on the table. 40 acres about 3 miles north of town. Creek running through it, timber on the ridge line, good flat ground for building. How much? Sam asked. Owner's asking $500. I offered $6 if he throws in the lumber rights. Clara raised an eyebrow. You're overpaying. I'm building goodwill. Small town like this, reputation matters. She hadn't thought of it that way. But Eli was right. They weren't just buying land, they were buying a future. And that was worth more than money. When can we see it? Tomorrow morning. Owner's meeting us at dawn. Clara nodded. Then I guess we'd better get some rest. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay in her narrow bed at the boarding house, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Everything was happening so fast. 2 weeks ago she'd been bleeding by a riverbank, certain she was going to die. Now she was about to buy property with a man she barely knew. No, that wasn't true. She knew Eli. Knew the important things, his kindness, his strength, his scars. Knew the way he looked at her like she mattered. Knew that when he said he'd protect her, he meant it with every fiber of his being. But there was still so much unknown. So many ways this could go wrong. A soft knock at her door made her jump. Clara! Eli's voice. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and opened the door. He stood in the hallway, his face half-shadowed by the dim lamplight. Couldn't sleep either, he said. No. Can I come in? She hesitated. Propriety said she should refuse. Mrs. Garrett wouldn't approve. But propriety had never saved her from anything. Yes. Eli stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. He didn't move toward her, just stood there, his hands in his pockets. I've been thinking, he said. About what? About Martha. Clara's heart clenched. Eli, you don't have to. I want to. He took a breath. For 10 years I've been living in the past. Every decision I made, every place I went was about running from her memory, or toward it. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. And now I'm standing in a boarding house in Colorado, about to buy land with a woman I pulled from a river 3 weeks ago. And for the first time since Martha died, I feel like I'm moving forward. Clara felt tears threatening again. She seemed to cry more now than she had in years. Maybe that was healing too. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of everything. Of wanting things. Of hoping. She wrapped her arms around herself. Every time I've hoped for something, it's been taken away. My mother, my father's love, my freedom. I don't know how to want things without waiting for the axe to fall. Eli crossed the space between them. His hands found her shoulders, gentle but steady. Then we learned together, just like I said. What if I can't? Then I'll wait. As long as it takes. Clara looked up at him, this man who had lost everything and still found the courage to try again. Who had saved her not once, but over and over with every quiet act of kindness, every patient word. I don't deserve you, she whispered. That's not true. It is. I'm broken, Eli. I've been broken for so long I don't remember what whole feels like. Then we'll figure it out together. His thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't felt fall. I'm broken too. But maybe that's okay. Maybe broken things can still fit together if you're patient enough. Clara laughed a wet, shaky sound. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm not good with words. No, but you're good with everything else. She kissed him, then rising on her toes to press her lips to his. He responded instantly, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her close. For a long moment, there was nothing else. No fear, no past. Just two people holding on to each other in the dark. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eli pressed his forehead to hers. Stay with me tonight. Clara's heart hammered. Eli. I just want to hold you, that's all. I'm not asking for more. She believed him. That was the thing, she actually believed him. Okay. They lay together on the narrow bed, Clara's head on Eli's chest, his arm around her shoulders. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear, slow and strong. Eli. What was she like, Martha? He was quiet for a long moment. Kind, stubborn, brave as hell. His voice softened. She used to sing while she worked. Couldn't carry a tune to save her life, but she did it anyway. Said music was too important to leave to people who were good at it. Clara smiled. I like that. She would have liked you. You think so? I know so. He paused. She always said I needed someone to challenge me. Keep me from getting too serious. I don't know if I'm challenging enough. Clara, you robbed a crime boss, faced down a dozen armed men, and dug a bullet out of me with a hot knife. You're plenty challenging. She laughed softly. When you put it that way, get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. Yes, sir. She felt him smile against her hair, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Clara slept without nightmares. The land was everything Eli had promised. Clara stood at the edge of what would become their property, looking out at the rolling meadow. A creek glittered in the morning light. Birds called from the tree line. What do you think? Eli asked. It's perfect. The house will go there. He pointed to a rise near the creek. And the barn over there. Corrals down by the water. You've been planning. Had a lot of time to think while I was bleeding out. Clara elbowed him. That's not funny. Little bit funny. The owner, an elderly man named Peterson, watched them with knowing eyes. You folks seem happy. We are, Clara said. We will be. Peterson nodded slowly. This land's been good to me. Raised my kids here, buried my wife up on that hill. He pointed to a spot beneath a massive oak. I'm too old to work it anymore, and my children moved east. But I wanted it to go to someone who'd appreciate it. We will, Eli said. I promise you that. I believe you. Peterson stuck out his hand. You've got yourself a deal, Mr. McAllister. They shook on it. The next weeks were a blur of activity. Sam helped them clear the building site, hauling rocks and cutting timber. Clara worked alongside them, her hands developing calluses she wore with pride. Eli designed the house simple but sturdy, with a porch facing the creek and enough rooms for a future they hadn't spoken about yet. You're overworking yourself, Eli told her one evening as she sat rubbing her aching shoulders. So are you. That's different. No, it ain't. He sighed. You're impossible. You like it. God help me, I do. The house frame went up in 3 weeks. The walls took another 2. By the time the first snow fell, they had a roof over their heads and a fire in the hearth. Sam left on a cold December morning. You sure you won't stay? Clara asked. Winter's hard out here. I've survived worse. He pulled her into a hug, quick and fierce. You take care of him, Miss Clara. He's more fragile than he looks. I will. Sam turned to Eli and clasped his hand. You're a good man, Eli McAllister. Don't let anyone tell you different. Including myself. Especially yourself. They watched him ride away until he was nothing but a speck on the horizon. You think we'll see him again? Clara asked. I hope so. Me too. Winter was harder than Clara had expected. The snow piled high, trapping them inside for days at a time. The wind howled through the gaps in the walls that hadn't been properly sealed. Some nights, even with the fire burning bright cold, crept into her bones. But there were good moments too. Eli teaching her to play cards by lamplight. Clara reading aloud from books they'd bought in town. Long conversations that stretched into the small hours, filling in the gaps of each other's histories. "Tell me about your mother," Eli said one night. Clara was quiet for a moment. She was beautiful. Had this laugh that made everyone around her smile. She used to tell me stories every night before bed, fairy tales mostly, but she'd change the endings. The princesses always rescued themselves in her versions. Sounds like a wise woman. She was. I wish... Clara stopped her throat tight. Wish what? I wish she could see me now. See that I made it. That I found someone who... She couldn't finish. Eli pulled her close. She knows. You believe that. I believe the people we love never really leave us. They're in the way we think, the choices we make, the strength we find when we need it most. He kissed the top of her head. Your mother is part of you, Clara. She always will be. Clara cried then for everything she'd lost and everything she'd found. Spring came like a blessing. The snow melted. The creek ran high with fresh water. Wildflowers pushed up through the mud, painting the meadow in colors Clara had never seen. And one morning, she woke up feeling strange. She made it halfway to the outhouse before the nausea hit. Eli found her 20 minutes later, pale and shaking. Clara, what's wrong? I don't know. I feel... She pressed a hand to her stomach. Off. His eyes widened. Are you? I don't know. But she did know. Somewhere deep inside she already knew. They rode to town that afternoon and found the doctor, an older woman named Dr. Walsh, who had set up practice in Ridgeway after being driven out of Denver for daring to be female in a man's profession. She examined Clara while Eli paced in the waiting room. When Clara emerged, her face was impossible to read. Well? Eli asked. Clara looked at him. This man who had saved her, healed her, loved her. I'm pregnant. The world seemed to stop. You're... Eli's voice cracked. We're going to have a baby. Yes. For a moment he just stared at her. Then his face transformed, joy and terror, and something she'd never seen before, something that looked like hope mixed with disbelief. Clara. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides and swept her into his arms. I love you. He said the words muffled against her hair. I love you so damn much. Clara held on to him, laughing and crying at the same time. I love you too. They stood there in the middle of the doctor's office, holding each other, while Dr. Walsh pretended to organize her instruments. I never thought... Eli pulled back, his eyes wet. After Martha, I didn't think I'd ever... I know. I'm terrified. Me too. But I'm also... He searched for the word. Grateful. So grateful. Clara cupped his face in her hands. We're going to be parents. Yeah. He laughed, half wild with emotion. We are. The months that followed were the happiest of Clara's life. Eli became obsessed with baby preparations. He built a cradle by hand, sanding each piece until it was smooth as silk. He bought fabric in town for blankets, then admitted he had no idea how to sew. Clara taught him, laughing at his clumsy stitches. It doesn't have to be perfect, she said. Yes, it does. Why? He looked at her, dead serious. Because our child deserves perfect things. Clara's heart swelled. Our child will have something better than perfect things. They'll have a father who loves them. Eli swallowed hard. I don't know how to be a father. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. Together? Together. Summer turned to fall. Clara grew round with their child, her movement slower, but her spirit lighter than it had ever been. Eli watched her like she was made of glass, constantly asking if she needed anything, if she was comfortable, if he could help. "You're hovering again," she told him. "I prefer to call it attentive." "It's hovering," he grinned. "Probably." The baby came on a cold October night. Clara's labor lasted 12 hours. Eli stayed by her side the whole time, holding her hand, wiping her brow, murmuring encouragement, when the pain seemed unbearable. Dr. Walsh worked with calm efficiency, guiding Clara through each contraction. "Push," she said. "Almost there. One more." Clara screamed, her whole body straining. And then a cry. Thin and high and perfect. "It's a girl," Dr. Walsh announced. Eli cut the cord with shaking hands. Dr. Walsh cleaned the baby, wrapped her in one of the blankets Eli had painstakingly stitched, and placed her in Clara's arms. Clara looked down at her daughter red-faced, squalling the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. "Hello," she whispered. "I'm your mama." The baby's eyes opened dark and unfocused, but somehow knowing. Eli leaned over them both, tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect." "She is." What should we name her? Clara had thought about this for months. She'd considered her mother's name, Martha's name, 100 others, but only one felt right. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." Eli made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Hope McAllister." "You like it?" "I love it." He kissed Clara's forehead, then their daughter's. "I love both of you, more than I ever knew I could." Clara held their baby close, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her chest. 3 years ago, she'd been a piece of property, a debt to be traded. She'd begged for death by a riverbank, certain her life was over. Now she had a home, a husband who loved her, a daughter who carried her name. She thought about everything that had led her here, the pain, the fear, the desperate flight through the darkness. Eli's rifle clicking in the night, his arms lifting her from the mud. The slow, painful process of learning to trust again. It hadn't been easy. None of it. And there would be hard times ahead, she knew that. Life didn't stop testing you just because you found happiness. But she also knew something else now. Something Cain had tried to beat out of her, something her father had sold away, something she'd thought was lost forever. She was worth fighting for, worth loving, worth saving. And so was Eli. So was their daughter. So was this life they'd built together from nothing but broken pieces and stubborn hope. Clara. Eli's voice pulled her from her thoughts. What are you thinking about?" She smiled, exhausted and radiant. "The river." "What about it?" "I used to think it was where I went to die, but now I think—" She paused, searching for the words. "I think it was where I went to be born again." Eli's eyes glistened. "That's beautiful." "It's true." Clara looked at their daughter, peaceful now in her arms. "Everything I lost, everything that was taken from me, it led me to that river. To you. To her. Sounds like fate. Maybe. Or maybe just two stubborn people too broken to quit." Eli laughed softly. "I'll take it either way." Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall. Inside, a fire crackled warm. A baby slept in her mother's arms. And a man who had spent 10 years running from ghosts finally stood still. "Eli," Clara said. "Yeah. I'm glad you saved me." He leaned down and kissed her soft and sure. "I'm glad you let me." And there, in a cabin built from stolen money and stubborn hope, a family was born. Not perfect, not unbroken, but real. And in the end, that was more than enough. Because love isn't about finding someone without scars. It's about finding someone who chooses you anyway, who holds you through the nightmares, fights for you when you can't fight for yourself, and builds a future from the wreckage of the past. Clara Whitmore had been sold like cattle, beaten like a dog, and left to die by a river. But she had survived. She had fought back. She had won. And now, holding her daughter in her arms, with the man she loved beside her, She finally understood what her mother's fairy tales had been trying to teach her all along. The princess doesn't need to be rescued. She needs to be brave enough to rescue herself. And when she does, when she breaks her own chains and walks into the unknown, she finds something better than a prince or a castle, or a happy ending written by someone else. She finds herself. And that, in the end, is worth more than all the gold in New Mexico. Clara closed her eyes, breathed deep, and smiled. She was home.